The glass doors of Harrington National Bank slid open with a soft hiss, and every polished surface inside reflected wealth. Marble floors, crystal lights, people dressed in confidence and perfume. Conversations hummed quietly, the sound of money moving from one place to another. Please subscribe our channel, A Story a Day, and drop your comment where from you watching our stories. Thank you. Then she walked in. Her name was Eliza Carter, and she was 17. She wore a faded blue dress, neatly ironed but worn thin at the elbows. Her shoes were clean yet old, the soles whispering against the marble floor as if apologizing for being there. She clutched a small brown envelope to her chest with both hands, like it contained something fragile. Maybe it did, her future. A ripple of laughter broke out near the waiting chairs. Is this a bank or a charity center now? A man in a tailored suit muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. Another woman glanced at Eliza's clothes and smirked. Probably lost. The cleaning staff entrance is around back. Eliza heard every word. Her cheeks burned, but she kept walking. At the reception desk, the young banker barely looked up. Yes? He said, already impatient. I'd like to open an account, Eliza said softly. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out clearly. The banker finally looked at her, eyebrows lifting in disbelief. He scanned her from head to toe, then leaned back in his chair. Minimum balance is $50,000, he said flatly, as if delivering a joke. The people nearby chuckled. Eliza swallowed. That's okay. The banker blinked. Excuse me? I said that's okay, she repeated, a little stronger this time. She placed the envelope on the counter and slid it forward with careful hands. Behind her, whispers grew louder. Must be her life savings. Poor thing doesn't know how banks work. Someone call her mother. If they had asked, they would have known her mother was Maria Carter, a maid who scrubbed floors in this very bank every night after closing. Maria cleaned the offices of men who would never learn her name, who stepped over her mopped floors without a glance. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to make sure Eliza never went hungry, even if she herself did. Eliza had promised her mother something, last night while washing dishes in their tiny apartment. One day I'll make you proud. One day you won't have to clean other people's messes. The banker opened the envelope, still smirking. Then his smile froze. His eyes dropped to the document inside, a neatly printed bank draft. The color drained from his face as he read the number once, twice. He straightened in his chair. Just a moment, he said, his tone suddenly polite. Too polite. He stood up and hurried toward the glass-walled executive office at the back of the bank. Inside that office sat Nathaniel Harrington, the billionaire owner of the bank, himself, reviewing quarterly reports. The banker knocked, pale and breathless. Sir, he said, holding up the paper with trembling fingers. You need to see this. Nathaniel frowned, then looked at the name and the balance. And for the first time that day, the bank went completely silent. The laughter in the bank faded into an uneasy silence. As the young banker hurried across the marble floor, Eliza remained standing at the counter, her fingers curled tightly around the strap of her worn handbag. She didn't look back. She had learned long ago that dignity sometimes meant not reacting at all. Inside the glass-walled office, Nathaniel Harrington adjusted his glasses and accepted the document. At first, his expression was neutral. Numbers rarely surprised a man who dealt in billions. But as his eyes moved down the page, something shifted. His jaw tightened. Then his brows slowly rose. This money belongs to her? He asked quietly. Yes, sir, the banker replied, his voice trembling. She wants to open a personal account. Nathaniel stood up. From his office, he could see the entire lobby. He noticed things others had ignored. The way the girl stood, straight despite the stares. The way her shoulders carried both fear and resolve. The envelope that had clearly been held and reheld 100 times. How much? Nathaniel asked, though he already knew. 3 million, sir. The words felt unreal hanging in the air. Nathaniel stepped out of his office. The sound of his polished shoes against the marble floor turned heads instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. The same people who had laughed moments ago now straightened in their seats. Suddenly respectful, suddenly alert. He stopped in front of Eliza. My name is Nathaniel Harrington, he said calmly. May I ask your name? Eliza's heart pounded. Eliza Carter, sir. And this balance, he said gently, holding up the paper. Is it truly yours? She nodded. Yes, sir. Every dollar. A man nearby scoffed. Come on. A maid's daughter doesn't just have that kind of money. Eliza flinched, but Nathaniel turned sharply toward the voice. This bank, he said coldly, does not measure worth by appearance. The man shrank back into his seat. Nathaniel looked back at Eliza. Where did it come from? He asked, not accusing but curious. Eliza took a slow breath. My mother worked 3 jobs. I studied on scholarships. I coded at night. I built an app. A company bought it last month. The room went still. Nathaniel's lips curved into something between a smile and admiration. Impressive. The banker rushed back to the counter, suddenly overeager. Please, Miss Carter, come this way. We'll get everything set up immediately. But Nathaniel raised a hand. I'll handle this. He gestured toward the executive lounge. Walk with me. Eliza hesitated. Everyone was watching now, the same eyes that had laughed now wide with disbelief. She nodded and followed him, her steps steady. As they walked, Nathaniel asked softly, Do you know why people laughed? Yes, sir, Eliza replied. Good, he said. Then you also know why they're silent now. She glanced up at him. Because they were wrong. Nathaniel smiled. Exactly. Behind them the whispers returned, but this time they carried a different tone. Not laughter, oi. And somewhere across the city, Maria Carter was scrubbing a marble floor, unaware that her daughter had just stepped into a life that would change, both of them forever. The executive lounge smelled faintly of leather and expensive coffee. Eliza sat on the edge of a cream-colored sofa, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across from her, Nathaniel Harrington studied her not like a banker studies numbers, but like a man searching for a story behind a face. You built an app, he said at last. Tell me about it. Eliza nodded, her voice quiet but steady. It was a budgeting tool for low-income families. My mother never knew how much money we had left after bills. I wanted something simple, no confusing graphs, no fees, just honesty. Nathaniel leaned back, intrigued. I coded on an old laptop, she continued. Most nights after my homework. Sometimes the electricity went out, so I used the cafe Wi-Fi down the street. I uploaded it for free at first. Then people started using it, thousands, then millions. And the company? Nathaniel asked. They offered to buy it, Eliza said. I didn't want to sell, but my mother's health... Her voice faltered. She needed treatment we couldn't afford. Nathaniel nodded slowly. So you chose security over pride? Yes, sir. He smiled. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. There was a pause. Outside the glass walls, bank employees pretended not to stare, though their eyes kept drifting toward the girl in the faded dress sitting with one of the most powerful men in the city. Do you know, Nathaniel said, what your name means in this world? Eliza frowned. My name? Your name will open doors now, he said. Not because of who you are, but because of how much you have. Eliza looked down. I don't want that. Nathaniel studied her carefully. What do you want? She answered without hesitation. I want my mother to rest. I want kids like me to stop being laughed at. I want to build things that help people before they break. For the first time in years, Nathaniel Harrington felt something shift inside his chest. He had built an empire on ambition and strategy, but this was different. Your account will be open today, he said. With full privacy. No press, no questions. Thank you, Eliza said softly. But, he added, leaning forward, I'd like to make you an offer. She tensed. I already sold my app. I'm not buying, he said. I'm investing in you. Eliza's eyes widened. I run an innovation foundation, Nathaniel continued. We fund ideas that don't just make money, but make sense. I'd like you to be part of it, on your terms. Silence stretched between them. That night, long after the bank closed and the city dimmed its lights, Maria Carter pushed her cleaning cart through Harrington National Bank. The marble floors were quieter now, echoing only the soft squeak of her worn shoes and the gentle swish of her mop. She had no idea that earlier that day, her daughter had stood exactly where she was standing, now, and changed everything. Maria wiped fingerprints from the glass walls of the executive offices, her arms aching from a 12-hour shift at the hotel before this one. Her back throbbed, but she welcomed the pain. Pain meant she was still providing, still surviving. As she cleaned near the executive lounge, she noticed a paper left behind on the table. She shouldn't have looked, but the name caught her eye. Eliza Carter. Her heart skipped. Maria picked up the document with trembling hands. It wasn't private, just a printed account summary forgotten in the rush of the day. Her eyes moved to the number, and for a moment her mind refused to understand it. She sat down slowly, the room spinning. No, she whispered. This must be a mistake. Tears blurred her vision as memories flooded her mind. Eliza studying late into the night, refusing new shoes, insisting she was fine. The headaches, the cough she'd hidden so her mother wouldn't worry. Footsteps echoed behind her. Maria jumped up, startled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to—" "It's all right," a calm voice said. Maria turned to see Nathaniel Harrington standing in the doorway. "I believe that's your daughter's," he said gently. Maria clutched the paper to her chest. "My daughter. She's just a child. She wouldn't, she couldn't, she could," Nathaniel said. "And she did." Maria's knees weakened. She sat back down, covering her mouth as tears streamed freely. "I cleaned floors," she sobbed. "I scrubbed toilets. I begged God to let her have a better life." Nathaniel watched quietly. He had signed deals worth more than Maria's lifetime earnings before lunch, yet this moment felt heavier than any contract. "She came here today alone," he said. "Brave, honest, unashamed." Maria shook her head. "They laughed at her, didn't they?" "Yes," he admitted. Maria closed her eyes. "They always do." Nathaniel crouched slightly so he was at her level. "Not today. Today they learned." There was a long silence. "She wanted to surprise you," Nathaniel added. "She didn't want you to worry anymore." Maria wiped her face with her sleeve. "She's been worrying about me this whole time," she whispered. "When she should have been a child." Nathaniel stood. "I'd like to help." Maria stiffened. "We don't take charity." He nodded. "Neither do I. This isn't charity. It's respect." The next morning, Maria would receive a letter. Medical coverage? Reduced hours, full pay. But tonight, she simply returned to her cart, wiping tears and glass alike, unaware that for the first time in decades, her future was no longer written in exhaustion. And across the city, Eliza didn't sleep that night. She lay on her narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of their apartment while the city hummed outside the window. Nathaniel Harrington's offer echoed in her mind like a door left half open, inviting, terrifying. An investment, a foundation, a future. She rolled onto her side and watched her mother sleeping on the couch, still in her cleaning uniform. Maria's chest rose and fell unevenly, exhaustion etched deep into her face. Eliza felt the familiar ache of guilt tighten in her chest. Everything she had done, every line of code, every sleepless night, had been for this woman. The next morning, Eliza walked her mother to the bus stop, just as she always had. "Come straight home after school," Maria said, adjusting Eliza's collar. "And don't skip lunch again." Eliza smiled softly. "I won't, Mama." Maria hesitated, studying her daughter's face. "You're hiding something." Eliza's smile faltered. "I just opened a bank account." Maria laughed lightly. "You've always been responsible." Eliza said nothing more, not yet. After school, instead of heading home, Eliza found herself standing in front of Harrington Tower again. The building seemed taller than before, more intimidating. She almost turned away. Almost. Inside, she was escorted straight to Nathaniel's office. This time there were no whispers, only nods, respect. Nathaniel looked up as she entered. "You came." "Yes," Eliza said. "But I have conditions." His eyebrow rose. "I'm listening." "I don't want my story used as inspiration porn," she said firmly. "No headlines. No poor girl saved by Billionaire." Nathaniel smiled. "Agreed. And I want control over what I build," she continued. "No turning it into something that hurts the people it's meant to help." "You'll have it." She took a breath. "Then I'll do it." Nathaniel stood and extended his hand. "Welcome." As they shook hands, Eliza felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. This wasn't just opportunity, it was responsibility. That evening, Maria came home to find an envelope on the table. Inside was a letter. Full medical coverage. Reduced hours, same pay. Her hands trembled. "Eliza!" she called out. Eliza stepped into the room, heart pounding. "Mama, I can explain." Maria crossed the room and hugged her tightly. "You were carrying this alone," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to worry," Eliza replied, tears falling freely now. "I wanted to fix things first." Maria pulled back and cupped her daughter's face. "You don't have to fix the world to deserve rest." Eliza nodded, sobbing. Outside, the city lights flickered on, unaware that in a small apartment, a cycle of exhaustion was quietly breaking. Tomorrow, Eliza would begin something new, something bigger than money. But tonight, for the first time in years, mother and daughter slept without fear. Change never arrives quietly. Within weeks of Eliza joining Nathaniel Harrington's Innovation Foundation, whispers began to spread, not through headlines, but through boardrooms, startup circles, and investor calls. A 17-year-old girl, a sold app, a mysterious account balance. People were curious, and curiosity, Eliza would soon learn, had sharp edges. Her days changed overnight. She still wore simple clothes, but now she sat at long glass tables with adults who spoke in acronyms and projections. They praised her raw genius and untapped potential, yet many of them spoke over her, assuming her silence meant ignorance. It didn't. During one meeting, a senior developer dismissed her suggestion without looking at her screen. "That won't scale," he said casually. Eliza waited, then calmly replied, "It already has. In 6 countries." The room went still. Nathaniel watched from the end of the table, saying nothing, a small smile forming at the corner of his mouth. Outside the foundation, the world began to notice too. A photo leaked, Eliza walking through Harrington Tower. The internet did the rest. From poverty to millions, the maid's daughter who fooled the bank, Billionaire's secret prodigy. Eliza read none of it. Maria did. One evening, Maria sat on the couch, phone trembling in her hands. "They're talking about you like you're a story," she said softly. "Not a person." Eliza sat beside her. "I told them no press." Nathaniel kept his word. He shut it down fast. But attention had a way of lingering. At school, classmates who had never spoken to Eliza suddenly wanted to sit beside her. Teachers looked at her differently. Prouder, kinder, but distant. Even kindness, Eliza realized, could feel isolating. One afternoon, as Eliza left the foundation, a woman stopped her near the exit. "I'm a reporter," she said quickly. "Just one question." Eliza shook her head. "No." The woman sighed. "Don't you want people to know where you came from?" Eliza paused. "People already think they know." That night, she sat at her old laptop, the one with the cracked corner, and opened a new file. She began to code again, not for investors, not for headlines. For kids like her, brilliant, invisible, tired. She built tools quietly. Anonymous scholarships, open source platforms, a digital space where no one had to prove their worth with clothes or connections. Nathaniel noticed the long hours. "You don't have to do this alone," he told her one evening. "I know," Eliza replied. "But I choose to." He nodded. "That's leadership." Meanwhile, Maria's health began to improve. Less work, more rest. Laughter returned to the apartment, soft at first, then real. Still, not everyone was happy. Across the city, a former investor who had laughed in the bank watched Eliza's rise with resentment. He hadn't forgotten the girl in the faded dress, and he wasn't done underestimating. The invitation arrived in thick cream paper, edged with gold. Harrington Annual Finance Gala. Black tie, media present. Eliza stared at it for a long time. "I don't belong there," she finally said. Maria, folding laundry nearby, looked up. "You belong wherever you choose to stand." Eliza smiled faintly. "They won't see me." "Not really. They didn't see you before either," Maria replied gently. "And look how far that got them." The night of the gala, the city glittered. Cameras flashed like lightning as luxury cars lined the entrance. Eliza stepped out beside Nathaniel, wearing a simple black dress, no diamonds, no excess, just confidence. Inside, the same faces from the bank were there. Older now, louder, still certain they knew how the world worked. Whispers followed her. "That's her. The girl with the balance. Doesn't look like much." Eliza heard it all. Midway through the evening, Nathaniel was called to the stage to speak. He paused, scanning the room. "Tonight," he said, "we celebrate innovation. Not money, not power, innovation." He turned slightly. "I'd like to introduce someone who reminded me why this matters." The spotlight found Eliza. Her heart thundered as she walked to the stage. She hadn't prepared a speech. She hadn't wanted one. She took the microphone. "I was laughed at in this city," she said quietly. "Not because I lacked intelligence, but because I lacked polish." The room stilled. "My mother cleaned buildings like this one," Eliza continued. "She taught me that dignity isn't given. It's practiced." Eyes shifted, some uncomfortable, some ashamed. "I don't want applause," she said. "I want access. For kids who are brilliant but invisible. For families who work hard and are still told it's not enough." She handed the microphone back and walked off the stage. The applause came anyway. Not thunderous, thoughtful, heavy. Later that night, a man approached her, the same one who had mocked her in the bank. "I misjudged you," he said stiffly. Eliza met his eyes. "You didn't misjudge me. You just didn't see me." He had no reply. Outside, Maria watched from the edge of the crowd, tears in her eyes. Not of pride alone, but of relief. Her daughter no longer had to shrink to survive. As Eliza and Nathaniel left the gala, he spoke softly. "That speech will cost you." Eliza nodded. "I know. But it will also change things," he added. She looked up at the night sky. That's the point. Behind them, the city buzzed, unaware that the girl once laughed out of a bank had just shifted its balance in a way no ledger could record. The morning after the gala, the backlash began. Not in public at first. It arrived quietly through canceled meetings, delayed approvals, unanswered emails, the kind of resistance that smiled politely while closing doors. Eliza felt it immediately. A pilot program she'd been developing for underfunded schools was suddenly under review. A partner organization withdrew, citing reputational risk. Investors who had once praised her vision now asked Nathaniel if she was too emotional to lead. She spoke the truth, Nathaniel said coolly during one call. Yes, the voice on the other end replied. And truth makes people uncomfortable. Eliza overheard more than she was meant to. She didn't flinch, but she didn't ignore it either. That evening she visited her old neighborhood alone. The buildings were the same. The cracked sidewalks. The kids playing with broken toys and big dreams. A boy recognized her. You're the bank girl, he said. She smiled. I'm just Eliza. He frowned. They say rich people don't come back. Eliza knelt to his level. Then they're wrong. Back at the foundation, tensions rose. Nathaniel called her into his office. They're pushing, he said. Hard. I know, Eliza replied. You could step back, he offered. Let me shield you. She shook her head. Then nothing changes. Nathaniel studied her. You'll lose support. Then we'll build our own, she said. That night, Eliza made a decision. She redirected funds, her funds, into a new independent initiative. No gala, no elite boards, just direct action. Free coding labs, microgrants, mentors from overlooked backgrounds. News leaked. Headlines followed. Billionaire-backed teen defies investors. Naive idealism or quiet revolution? Maria worried. They'll come after you. Eliza squeezed her hand. They already have. The pressure peaked when a formal complaint landed on Nathaniel's desk, questioning Eliza's qualifications and mental preparedness. He crumpled it and tossed it away. You okay? He asked her later. Eliza exhaled slowly. I'm tired, but I'm not afraid. The first lab opened in a converted warehouse. Kids lined up before sunrise, some barefoot, some carrying borrowed laptops. Eliza stood at the door, welcoming them one by one. Inside, the air buzzed, not with money, but possibility. Across the city, those who had once laughed watched in disbelief. The maid's daughter wasn't asking for permission anymore. She was building something they couldn't control, and that terrified them. Success invites scrutiny. Real change invites attack. The morning the lab opened its third location, Eliza woke to Nathaniel's urgent call. They're auditing you, he said. Everything? Eliza sat up, heart steady but heavy. Legal? Yes, aggressive. By noon, officials arrived at the warehouse. Polite, sharp-eyed, thorough. They asked for permits, records, contracts. The kids were sent home early, confusion clouding their faces. Maria watched from a chair near the door, hands clasped tightly. This is my fault, she whispered. If I hadn't... Eliza knelt in front of her. This is no one's fault. This is what happens when the wrong people feel threatened. Rumors spread faster than facts. Misused funds, unqualified leadership, front for tax evasion. Sponsors pulled out overnight. Social media turned cruel. Nathaniel offered again. I can end this. One call. Eliza shook her head. If we survive only because of your name, we don't survive at all. Days passed, then weeks. Eliza worked relentlessly, answering audits, filing documents, correcting tiny oversights she hadn't known mattered. Sleep became a luxury. Doubt crept in during quiet moments. One night she broke, sitting on the floor of the lab. Lights off, she whispered. Maybe they were right. Maria found her there. You remember when I used to clean this bank? Maria said softly. I was invisible, but the dirt still came off. The work still mattered. Eliza looked up through tears. Visibility doesn't decide value, Maria continued. Impact does. The audit report arrived on a gray morning. No wrongdoing found. The relief was sharp enough to hurt. Word spread quickly this time. Kids returned, then more. Volunteers signed up. Donations came, not from corporations, but from teachers, nurses, janitors, people who saw themselves in Eliza. A former skeptic published an apology. Another didn't, but sent a check anyway. The lab reopened with twice the attendance. Eliza stood before the students, voice calm but firm. They tried to shut us down, she said. And they failed. Not because we're powerful, but because we're honest. Applause filled the room. Later that day, Nathaniel handed her a folder. What's this? She asked. "A list," he said, "of banks and investors who laughed at you." Eliza glanced at it, then closed the folder. "No," she said, "that's their story, not mine." She stepped outside into the sunlight, the noise of learning rising behind her. The fire had tested her, and she hadn't burned. Years later, the laughter was a distant memory. The bank still stood, polished, proud, but so did the buildings. Eliza had helped raise in places no billionaire tour ever visited. Learning centers, clinics, small businesses started by people who had once been told no too many times. Eliza Carter was no longer introduced as the maid's daughter. She was introduced as the founder. On a quiet afternoon, Eliza walked back into Harrington National Bank. Not for press, not for ceremony, just business. Some faces had changed, some hadn't. A young teller looked up and smiled nervously. "Welcome, Miss Carter." Eliza nodded kindly. From his office, Nathaniel Harrington watched her cross the floor. Older now, softer around the eyes, proud in a way money could never buy. They met in the same executive lounge. "Do you remember the first day?" Nathaniel asked. Eliza smiled. "I remember the laughter. And the balance," he added. She shook her head. "No, I remember the silence after." They shared a quiet laugh. Nathaniel slid a document across the table. "The foundation is yours now, fully. I'm stepping back." Eliza looked up sharply. "Are you sure?" "I've taught you everything I can," he said. "The rest you already know." She accepted the papers, feeling the weight of years, of choices, of nights spent coding by dim light. Before leaving, Eliza paused in the lobby. She watched a young girl enter with her mother, nervous, underdressed, clutching an envelope. A few people glanced, one snickered. Eliza walked over. "Would you like help?" she asked gently. The girl nodded, eyes wide. Together, they walked to the counter. No laughter followed. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet revolutions happening every day. That evening, Eliza visited her mother's apartment, now brighter, warmer, filled with plants and laughter. Maria hugged her tightly. "You did more than save us," she whispered. "You changed the rules." Eliza looked around, thinking of all the girls who would walk into places like banks and labs and schools without apology. "The balance," Eliza said softly, "was never the money." Maria smiled. It was courage. As night fell, Eliza opened her laptop and began planning the next lab, the next scholarship, the next door to open. Because some accounts never close. They grow.